What does it mean to truly understand someone, let alone help them? Let's talk about it today with I Stand Here Ironing by Tillie Olsen.
Oh, hey. I just figured I multitask on the video here. Is that okay?
You're going to give up within 10 seconds, I can already tell.
Nah, I got this. I'm ironing crypto.
All right, guys, my name is Una, and welcome to the CodeX Cantina, where we take a step deeper into the literature that we read. If you're down for a conversational approach to literature, hit that subscribe button, and thank you to all of our patrons that support us on this journey.
All right, you're right. I'm done. I'm putting the iron away.
I'm
not even wearing this shirt tomorrow.
You didn't even last 30 seconds.
All right, I'm sitting down.
That should give you some appreciation for what happens in the story. Published in...
This was published in Tillie's short story collection, Tell Me a Riddle, in 1956. And we'll leave a link down below where you can listen for free.
I really like this piece. This is like a really cool little vignette through time, if you will. I like the way it starts off like in World War II, where we have depression and the coming together of how women entered into the workforce to keep America running as, the war waged on. And then afterwards, the men come back and you've got a lot of questions of where are we going with this and early waves of feminism hitting of can women work and can they provide in the workplace? And what does that mean for the raising of family? And I think that's all themes that we kind of need to dive into today and maybe share our perspective. And if you guys have a different view or, have a different interpretation for the story, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below.
I know that I was joking around with the ironing, but I really do like how that Tillie's able to take, what I felt anyway, the idea of something that is a mundane task, one that was seen as lesser than for a lot of people during this time period, as relegated to something that is, oh, you have to do that because you're a woman. And she's taking that and kind of taking it back, right? And saying, no, this is ours. And this is something that is powerful for us. And it's something that's important. And then there's all these subtle hints through the story of using something like ironing as such a great symbology. And I really do like this story. There's a lot of stuff that's embedded within it.
So what we're going to do is a quick plot summary to make sure we're all on the same page and then jump into some of the discussion and analysis. So for plot, in the beginning, the mother/narrator is asked something about her daughter. The person asking wants to help her somehow. And the narrator recalls when Emily, her firstborn, was born during the Great Depression. 8 months after her birth, their father left them as he could no longer endure. The narrator had to leave Emily with caretakers and even her ex-husband's family for short periods of time as she sought work to earn the pay to help them to live. The narrator remarries and they have a daughter, Susan. Emily catches the measles and spends a few months at a charity-run convalescent home for children. And when World War II began, Emily aided her mother in caring for the household. Oh, I forgot to mention the time period earlier. She even began to fall behind in her schooling. Emily soon discovered her gift for comedy and became popular at school by making others laugh. The narrator thinks how she didn't get the gift of humor from her and even regrets not smiling or laughing more when she was raising her children. The narrator tells the story and is interrupted when Emily returns home. The narrator hopes the unnamed person will be able to help Emily. End plot.
This one felt very tense through a lot of it, and you don't have a lot of dialogue or anything going on. It just feels like she's reminiscing, right, of how maybe she could have done things differently or better.
It almost felt very stream of conscious, and it reminds me a little bit of Girl by Jamaica Kincaid, if you remember when we did that one,
yeah.
Which was kind of like that list of here's the things to be, a to-be list instead of a to-do list. Well, here's the mother talking about what she did and maybe the impacts it had on her daughter, which I thought was very powerful. What did you think of Emily's mom to begin with?
So I'm so conflicted on Emily's mom. I feel like that she's, in the beginning, I was okay with it, but then it felt like as the story progressed, she seemed to be kind of making excuses, right? She seemed to be saying, well, it's not my fault. And, there was this circumstance and I'm a product of my circumstance, and that's okay. But I think that for me, I interpreted that that sometimes you got to rise up above that, and whether you're going to be, a victim or whether you're going to, struggle past that and persevere. And it just felt like Emily's mom wasn't persevering sometimes.
Well, would you say sometimes life throws us challenges, right? And to your point, sometimes you have to rise up to that challenge and sometimes you can't, right? It sounded to me like you took some of these challenges as justification, perhaps, for areas that she could have improved in raising Emily. And I agree, she wanted to do a better job. She wanted to do the best job she could. And I think I didn't take it as justification. I took it as, we're going to explain why things are the way they are today. Sometimes we're doing not perfect things, like having to have someone else watch your children. In this case, having her ex-husband's family watch the children. That's like the last people typically you want watching your children in a divorce. But she had to. She had to raise the money to push her family forward. So I could see how one would take it as justification, but I would also offer the opportunity to maybe look at this as, maybe it's not justification so much as an explanation. If someone truly wanted to help her, right? Isn't it always kind of like the Hollywood trick that when you're like, oh, when I understand why we get the villain backstory and the villains why the way they are, we can relate to them differently. We can perhaps go at a different angle. And I felt like maybe that's how I took the mother story, is that she was providing this backstory to the character. So maybe we can attack or come at this problem in a different way to help her, quote unquote.
I think there's definitely multiple ways of looking at this. And I think that it does show some of the strength of the mother. I think that she has made sacrifices for this child. But then as we get further into the story, she has a second child. And that's where I kind of not lost respect, but I'm just like, well, if you're struggling for this one child and you want to do the best you can for your family, why have a second child? Why not just continue to put your efforts for your first child, and then treating your children differently? That also is a struggle where I kept going back and forth, because this is a very complex character. And I think that that's something that I kind of struggled with as well.
Okay, let's dig into that. So one of the first things you mentioned there, I think, is you're kind of talking about how she was alone, met another man, and continued on with their family, right? So first of all, do we agree Tillie Olsen is presenting I think she's presenting a strong woman. Would you agree with that statement?
100%, definitely. If you're going through this in the 1950s, post-Depression, post-World War II, struggling to make an ends meet in a man's America, definitely a strong-willed woman.
Okay. Because, the man couldn't endure, so I think she's painting a different view here, which I respect. And as for starting the new family, I'm not sure Tillie Olsen led me down that path. Like, when I look at the word choice, I don't think I was meant to really be judging the mother, because whose story is this? Is this the mother's story? Maybe this is our disagreement. Is this the mother's story, or is this Emily's story?
Oh, okay. Can it be both, or does it have to be one or the other?
Well, I think so we're clearly going to the mother for answers about Emily. And to understand Emily, you must understand what the mother had to go through to make the decisions for Emily up to that point, right? When it comes to the family, the second family, I will say this. There are some times I do things with my son, and I look at it afterwards and I'm like, I could have handled that a lot better. If I just had a little bit more patience, if I just looked at it from his view, he just wanted to do this or have fun or spend time, and here I am wrapped up in work, right? And I'm getting mad that he keeps bugging me or coming in and in the middle of conferences, and I'm like, dude, you gotta go. I feel really bad for snapping at him. You know what I mean? So the way I take this is I'm like, okay, for kid number 2, I can't make this mistake. Kid number 1, I'm just trying not to mess up. He's also training me for how kid number 2 needs to be taught, in a sense. And the way I thought Olsen kind of presented this was we were so wrapped up, we being, the single mother in this case. She's so wrapped up in trying to care for this child, to work And she's sacrificing for this child. I think we agree with that, right? She's doing all the work that she can. Even when she realized that she was missing out, she'd start, like working late at night and stuff like that. I think what she realized was that because of those times she was frustrated and didn't smile when Emily needed it, that she realized she needed to improve that for child number 2, for Susan. She needed to do a better job and smile more, and that's what she achieved for the next 4 kids, right? So sometimes they say the first home you buy teaches you what you want in your second home. And I have to say, as a parent, I see a little bit of that with children too. The mistakes I made with my first child, I can't make with my second one.
So the question is now, class, does Una have an older sister or a younger sister?
Did you
is he the mistake or is he the perfection?
Now, you have a sister that is older, correct?
Younger. My sister's younger.
Oh, your sister's younger?
Yeah, so she's the perfect one. I'm the mistake.
Oh boy, so you made all the mistakes. You should look out for your sister. Why aren't you being the better role model, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, at the same time, when you're putting these expectations on you, I don't know how your parents related to this, but in the Olsen story here, I liked how we talk about humor, where Olsen talks about how the narrator gives the narrator a lack of humor when raising Emily. And when she sees that Emily does have a sense of humor, she knows that it didn't come from her. And she knows that she made mistakes. But somehow that child still found a way to shine. That child still found a way to laugh and to develop this own sense of humor and thrive, I guess, in life, right? I mean, she was born during the Great Depression. To come out with humor that doesn't even come from the mom, but to find that joy in life, you did something right as a parent when your children can succeed like that.
I guess it comes back for what you said earlier for me is whose story really is this? And I think it can be both. I think that the mother is trying to relate to Emily in some way, and she's struggling because she sees the flaws of how she raised her, and then she maybe feels a little bit of guilt for some of this, and that they could have a better relationship. They could understand one another better because she's doing something that she could be envious of as well. I kind of felt like the mom was like, oh man, my daughter, I maybe messed up raising her, but I'm kind of proud of her, and I'm even envious that she's off doing something that I'm, not stuck, maybe isn't the right word, but I'm here continuing to do the, laborious task of ironing, and she has moved forward past the expectations of 1950s America for women at that time.
So I'm glad you brought up the ironing, because obviously the iron has to represent something in the story, right? Like that last 2 paragraphs of the story, absolutely gorgeous writing. But just in the same way that you were going to iron while doing your chores, filming your YouTube channel here, right? That ironing represents something, right? She's trying to take care of others. She's trying to take out the wrinkles from this shirt. She's trying to smoothen out her life because it hasn't been easy for her. This whole putting the chores first, putting your children first, trying to make it smooth for them in their life, I felt was a very powerful just engine that kind of pushed the story forward.
Definitely. And I think that all comes back to the setting of this is the 1950s and women have been relegated back to the household chores and taking care of the children and providing at home after they had this burst of freedom during World War II and now being relegated back to this. She is ironing and trying to figure ways of fixing her life and, pressing things back. And I think that she herself struggles with this because of what maybe she lost and she sees her daughter has gained. And this is, I think that Olsen is trying to say that we're going to move forward as a people. And I love that, glimpse of early feminism in this story.
So I think responsibility, that has to play a role in how we think about this piece. Because you have the mother that is, in my view, a self-sacrificing mother, but also understands that it's not idyllic. Sometimes we have to do what we have to do to move forward, and that's okay. And I think that symbol of the smile reinforces it because it shows how Emily still turned out with her own personality. She still found joy, even if you didn't directly give that to her or show her that. Children will still push on in a sense.
Yeah. And the last takeaway for me is what is the connection here of why the mother's opinion matters so much? And maybe that's one thing, is that as, children, we do look for, validation for our lives from our parents. And for me, the very beginning of the story is when the mother says, what am I the key to her? Why am I the one that's going to unlock all the knowledge of why Emily is the way that she is? And that says a lot. I took that as that maybe you don't need that from your parents to feel good about yourself, but it sure does help sometimes, I think. At least that's kind of how I took it.
It's always hard to know someone else. So with that, hopefully this story got you to know a little bit more about Tillie Olsen's writing. I hope you guys enjoyed it out there. We'll leave a playlist down below for her writings and future video talks that we may have on her. Crypto, let's move into our subjective wrap-up and ratings. What are you going to give this one?
I'm going to give it a solid 8. You got history. You're going to get me there. World War II, Great Depression, small town America in the 1950s. Oof, beautiful plot setting. I love it. I love the complexity of these characters. I love that we've had a great discussion on whose story truly is this? Does that even matter? And for me, I took a lot of kind of maybe internalizing that what was the struggle during this time period, and how you can take something that was relegated as almost a negative or a downplay of, oh, you're not good enough to work anymore, you're going to do this instead, and take that back, capture that back as our own. I thought that was very, very unique. And I think Olsen did a fantastic job of painting a picture of early feminism for the 1950s.
Cool. For me, again, this is just a subjective rating. It doesn't matter about the quality of the story. It's just how did it resonate with me. I saw a bit of myself in the story with my son and made me question those things. I saw stuff with my siblings, but I don't know. There was something that it just didn't really drive home with me. I don't know if it's just maybe the writing style. Not that it's bad. Maybe it just didn't connect with me. So it was a little bit lower on my scale, maybe like 6.5 or 7. But that's just my personal enjoyment. It has nothing to do with the quality of the story. Very strong story, and appreciate what it says. So definitely recommend it from that perspective. So with that said, guys, if you enjoyed today's conversation and are down for more discussions like this, we post videos every Monday and Thursday. Hit that subscribe button to join us. Una out.
Back to ironing.